purposes. I didn't have ironic though, because these same parents treated me like I didn't exist. Well, sometimes they'd come home with lots of gifts, expensive jewelry and clothes, so I think they wanted me to know they cared even though they had no time to talk to me. Sometimes we'd fly away on our private jet for very short vacations, and other times they'd let me and Christina go on our own. If we felt like having dinner in Paris or breakfast in Italy, they'd let us. But apart from that, I was practically raising myself. I had friends, money, popularity, but I didn't have what I wanted the most. I sat on my bed all moody one night, trying to brainstorm ideas. How could I get my parents to notice me, to actually want to spend time with me? I could destroy the house and become a really problematic kid, but would they even notice? And that would just be more work for Christina. What was I going to do? Then I got an idea. Aha! I'll just become famous too. I sent my dad a text message because he wasn't home. Maybe he'd read it. I hoped he would. Dad, can you arrange a meeting for me with your manager? I want to talk to him about something. The next morning, he woke me up and told me I could come to the office with him. I won't go into all the details, but the guy was pretty receptive towards my idea. I wanted my own show.
So, you want to follow in your parents' footsteps, huh?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Well, fine. You'll have to take a few acting lessons, but I think you've got the acting genes. Consider it a deal.
I couldn't believe it was that easy. The next week, I was allowed to skip school for my acting lessons. After a few months, the pilot episode for my first show was released, and it was an instant hit. I went back to school for a little while, and everyone made a huge fuss about me. But when I went home, it was back to the same thing. So I figured I needed to work a little harder. After my first season was complete, I went back to my dad's manager, who is also my manager now, and I told him I wanted to produce a music video.
Can you even sing?
Not really, but have you ever heard of auto-tune?
Okay, fine. You can work on that before we get started on your next season. Good job, by the way. I think you're doing great.
Before I knew it, I was a sensation. I had millions of views on YouTube, and almost everyone knew my name. And then the best thing happened. My manager suggested that I do a collab with a rapper who was about my age.
I've invited him here today.
Really?
Oh, look, he's right behind you now.
I turned around and I couldn't believe it. This guy had actually been my celebrity crush for a long time.
What's up, babe?
He smiled. Hi. I waved shyly because that's all I could do. I felt paralyzed.
Anyway, kids, I've planned a nice lunch for you two so we can get to know each other. But it has to be done in the company's restaurant downstairs because no one can see you together.
Why?
Well, Caleb has a girlfriend, so if anyone sees the two of you out together, they'll take pictures and it'll cause a stir. But don't worry, babe, she's not my real girlfriend. It's just for show. For the fans, you know what I mean?
Yes. I lied. I had the most amazing lunch date ever, and the time we spent working on our video the next few months was awesome. I never even saw the fake girlfriend at all. Caleb and I became great friends, and he'd come over to my house sometimes. We could only hang out privately, but I was okay with that. We'd always find something fun to do. Then one day, he said,
Hey, Natasha, I know it's weird that I have a fake girlfriend and all, but I feel like you're my best friend. And well, I was wondering, do you want to, be my real girlfriend?
Wow, Caleb. Of course. I thought you'd never ask. I finally had someone who saw my awesomeness and treated me like I existed. Although I was still sad about my parents, Caleb made me feel a lot better. We kept our relationship a secret for a long time, so we wouldn't upset my manager or cause any unnecessary drama. But we were so used to cuddling and kissing all the time that one afternoon we totally forgot. We were standing outside by my manager's building.
Whoops.
The video of all that drama was online by the time we got back, but a few $1,000s got it erased from all platforms. My parents are much nicer to me now, and my relationship is great.
Let's have another join.
The stairs creaked as Miranda and I walked down to the basement.
I can't wait for you to see what Grandma and I do for fun.
Miranda looked at me, her eyes twinkling. Are you going to give me a hint? I smiled at her.
Let's pause a bit. Unlock this car, unlock my car. Head to the motel and stay there for the night. Why the fuck not, right? Rag school dog. 7 o'clock fucking morning. I walked a bitch. Fuck you! Fuck the feds! I thought they'd known to stay away from this area. They're not welcome in this fucking area. In Brisbane. Hey boss. Hey. How's the business going? Good? That's good. Have you got some money for me? Yeah, here you go boss. Thank you. I'll catch you later. Have a good one. I lock my car. Let's go to the shop down here. The clothes shop and the barber shop. Go to the clothes shop first. Fucking hell. Shit. Three, 2, 1, action. Where the fuck is she? She's supposed to be here. Oh bitch. You owe me money. Where the fuck are you? Well, it looks like she's not here. So I have to damage her shop pretty much. No matter. No matter. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Well, that's just all it is, a lesson. Why you should pay up. Let's go to the fucking barber shop down here. Hey boss. Hey, how's the business? It's going great. Okay, good. Have you got some money for me? Yeah, okay, here boss. Cool, thank you. Have a good day. You too, boss. Gang life. Collecting debts and fucking taking over territories. Money. Gang life. Gang life. You heard me. Yeah, buddy. Gang life. You heard me correctly. Gang life. You heard me correctly. Gang life. Yeah, buddy, let's turn this corner. Let's turn this corner down here. On the block. Let's chill here, buddy. Let's chill here. No, I need to keep on my... I need to keep an eye on my fucking car. So, let's chill here. Press play,
She
dog.
took my hand and squeezed it gently.
Well, we capture exquisite, rare things.
When we reached the bottom of the basement, Miranda stopped. She stroked the side of my face and turned my face so our eyes met.
You have the most gorgeous eyes I've ever seen.
It was as though something clicked in my mind, and I looked around the basement. A sense of dread slowly rose up in me. Before I could respond, something hit me over the head, and I fell to the ground with a thud. Hey, my name is Dimitri. Like and subscribe to our amazing channel. Tap that notification bell so that you will know when we post new stories. As soon as I saw Miranda, I knew that I wanted her. There were numerous rumors at the high school that she and her grandmother were into some weird stuff. But, I mean, who doesn't have something weird about their family? It took me about a month before I was able to muster up all my courage to not only approach her, but to ask her out. I sweated nervously as she looked at me before she smiled and said
Yes.
After dating a few months, I invited Miranda over to meet my parents. As we pulled up to my driveway, Miranda looked at me nervously.
Do I look okay? Do you think they'll like me?
I took her hand and kissed it softly. My parents are going to love you. How could they not? Dinner was a hit. My parents loved Miranda and made her feel at home. After dessert, Miranda said that it was time for her to head home. Mom and Dad hugged her. Mom held her hand and said,
I can't wait to meet your grandmother. Maybe we could have both of you over next time.
Miranda smiled and nodded, and we left. As I dropped her off at her grandma's, she turned to me.
How about you come over next Saturday to meet Grandma? She's been longing to meet you.
She smiled. I'd love to. Do you need me to bring anything?
Just bring those pretty eyes of yours.
Miranda leaned in and kissed me before she hopped out of the car. I waited until she was safe inside the house before driving off. As I drove home, I couldn't help but wonder if Miranda's grandmother would welcome me with open arms as my parents welcomed her granddaughter. The next few days were nerve-wracking. Meeting Miranda's grandmother was a huge deal for me, and I hoped it would turn out as successful as I wanted it to be. I mean, you only get to make a first impression once, and I wanted the first time that we met to be memorable for both of them. On the day, I pulled up to Miranda's grandmother's house at 6 p.m. sharp. I walked with a bouquet of flowers for Miranda and one for her grandmother. I nervously adjusted my clothing before I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, Miranda opened it and she greeted me with a warm smile and stepped aside for me to enter.
Hey, handsome. Hope you brought your appetite.
I smiled and handed Miranda her bouquet of flowers.
Thank you, babe. I'll go and put these in some water.
As she walked away, she yelled.
Grandma, our special guest has arrived.
A wrinkled older woman with short gray hair and clothing 2 sizes too big hobbled the living room. Her voice cracked as she spoke.
Good night, Dimitri. Miranda has told me quite a lot about you.
Good night, ma'am. I hope that she said only good things. Miranda's grandmother smiled and nodded. I got you these, I said as I handed over the flowers. Miranda told me how much you loved lilies. Her grandmother took the flowers and smelled them.
Will you take an old lady's hand?
She extended her hand and placed it on the crook of my elbow.
Let's eat.
She smiled as we strolled towards the kitchen. After dinner, Miranda eagerly wanted to show me something in the basement. As a loving boyfriend, also hoping to spend some time alone away from her grandmother, I accepted the venture to head to the basement. The wooden stairs creaked as
Let's have
Miranda
another
and I
join.
walked down to the basement.
I can't wait for you to see what Grandma and I do for fun.
Miranda looked at me, her eyes twinkling. Are you going to give me a hint? I smiled at her. She took my hand and squeezed it gently.
Well, we capture exquisite, rare things.
When we reached the bottom of the basement, Miranda stopped. She stroked the side of my face and turned my face so our eyes met.
You have the most gorgeous eyes I've ever seen.
It was as though something clicked in my mind, and I looked around the basement. A sense of dread slowly rose up in me. Before I could respond, something hit me over the head, and I fell to the ground with a thud. I opened my eyes groggily and shook my head as I tried to focus on my surroundings. I was tightly tied to a chair.
Oh, you're up finally.
Miranda said as she twirled in a chair in front of me.
It wouldn't have been as much fun if you were still unconscious.
I pulled against the ropes. Miranda, I don't understand. What are you doing?
As I said before, Grandma and I have this special hobby where we collect rare and exquisite things. The best part is sometimes we even get paid. Do you know how much we are being offered for just one of your eyes?
There was an awkward silence.
Too afraid to guess? Then let me tell you. One of your eyes is worth $100,000.
Suddenly, a can rolled across the floor in front of Miranda, releasing thick gray smoke.
Hey, what are you doing?
I heard shuffling, then Miranda gasped. My ropes were cut, and as I stood, I rubbed my wrists. Miranda, I think you've met my mom already, I said as I nodded in her direction. As the gas disappeared, I walked over to Miranda and held her face tightly. Her arms were tied behind her back, and Mom was holding her arm. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dmitri Volkov, and I'm a bounty hunter. Do you know how much you and your grandmother are worth? There are people in very high places that you took some things from that want revenge. I waited a few seconds before replying. Too afraid to guess? Then let me tell you, each of you is worth $250,000. That definitely trumps the $100,000 for one of my eyes, don't you think? Though I guess you've guessed by now, huh? I'm not who I said I was. I'm a bounty hunter, and I only used Miranda to gain her trust. Well, she did the same thing to me, so I guess it's only what she deserved, right? I turned to my mom. Is the grandmother down and out? Mom smiled.
Like a newborn baby.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. There is money to be made. Mom escorted Miranda outside to the black panel van, where Dad was already waiting. Mom threw her in the back of the van and, just like her grandmother, tied her arms to the metal rod above their heads. Once she was secured, Dad, Mom, and I hopped into the front of the van. There was a slight drizzle, which quickly turned into a heavy downpour. The traffic began to pile up, and Mom looked at her watch.
We've got to get to the airstrip in 1 hour, or we'll miss our chance.
Don't worry.
Dad said, focused on the road.
We've never missed a deadline, and we aren't going to miss one now. We have a helpless old woman and a teenage girl. How much trouble could they be?
Suddenly, we felt the van rock slightly, followed by a loud bang. My parents and I shared a concerned look. Dad stopped the van, and Dad and I went to check it out.
Damn it!
Dad slammed his fist into the side of the van when he noticed that the door to the van was open and our bounty had escaped. Dad and I quickly searched the jam-packed streets. A short way ahead, I see Miranda and her grandmother's head bobbing between the cars. I was amazed at the swiftness and agility of the older woman. We need to stop them before they reach Lapino Falls, or we'll lose them for good. Lapino Falls was a camping ground not too far from the highway. That was densely forested with a stream running through before it formed into a waterfall. Miranda and her grandmother separated once they got off the highway. Dad followed her grandmother and I followed Miranda. Miranda bolted towards the stream that was now raging from the rain. I cornered her between the stream and myself. We've got nowhere to run, Miranda, I yelled over the rain. As I moved cautiously towards her, she stepped backwards. Her hands flailed in the air and her eyes widened with fright as she slipped backward into the torrential water, which swept her away. Without a second thought, I dove into the water to save Miranda. Luckily for the both of us, a tree had fallen close to the mouth of the waterfall. I was able to grab Miranda before holding onto the tree for dear life. Miranda was able to climb to safety and I followed closely. Once on the bank of the stream, we lay on our backs, gasping for air. Just as Miranda was about to get up and run, I snatched her hand. You aren't getting away that easily. We got up slowly. For a minute, as we looked into each other's eyes, as we shared a moment, Miranda pulled me in for a deep kiss, and I obliged. The kiss lasted a few seconds before she pulled away.
I really do love you, Dmitri.
She caressed my face. Her face then contorted, and a devilish smile appeared on her face as she pushed me into the stream. I seized a handful of her clothing, and we both stumbled into the water. This time, however, we fell over the 15-foot waterfall and into the pool below. Coughing up water, we both dragged ourselves to shore, looking like two stray cats, soaked and waterlogged. Miranda looked at me weirdly as she asked, in a raspy voice,
What's wrong with your eye?
I coughed and then chuckled. Oh, that? I had special contacts made just so I could get on your radar and win your trust. After that, everything else was easy. Before I knew what was happening, Miranda slammed a large branch into my stomach that knocked the wind out of me. When she swung it at me again, I grabbed the stick and threw it into the water. My parents always told me to never hit girls, but this was an exception. I scrambled to my feet quickly, and Miranda and I squared off. She threw the first punch, and I returned rapid fire, hitting her squarely in the jaw. She stumbled backwards, but was quickly able to regain her footing. "Don't make me hurt you," I yelled.
You can try.
Miranda replied as she hit me with a kick in the middle of my chest that sent me flying backwards. Our fight went on for a few minutes as punches and kicks flew through the air. I was finally able to get the upper hand and pin her down.
Dimitri,
Mom's voice came through to the clearing.
are you okay?
"Yep, just another day on the job." Mom handed me a pair of handcuffs that I quickly placed on Miranda. Mom led me to the van that was just outside the forested area. Miranda's grandmother was already chained in the van, and we placed Miranda next to her. This time, Dad stayed in the back of the van while Mom took the wheel. By the time we got back on the road, the sun was peeking out from behind the clouds, and it had stopped raining. We arrived 15 minutes late to the drop-off.
You're late.
Raul, a big muscular guy, announced when we opened the van doors.
Oh, Raul.
Mom replied smoothly.
What's 15 minutes between friends? You know we always deliver.
Mom batted her eyes at him. A small smile crept to Raul's lips.
Ah, yes, the grandmother-granddaughter duo. My boss can't wait to get a hold of you.
Raul rubbed his hands together menacingly as Dad took Miranda and her grandmother out of the van.
I'll make you suffer if it's the last thing I do, Dimitri.
Miranda spat at my feet before she was dragged to the small airplane. Dad collected the money and counted it before we bade Raul farewell. As we headed home, I couldn't help but reminisce at the fun times and special moments that Miranda and I shared. A few years passed, and we had stopped the bounty hunting business after my parents retired and moved to Tobago to live. I got married to a beautiful woman named Onika, and we had a beautiful daughter, Rebecca. Every morning, I held my 7-year-old hand and walked her to the end of the street to wait for the school bus. As we saw the bus coming up the street, I gave her a hug, told her I loved her, and to have a great day at the school. The school bus stopped in front of us, and the door slid open. Rebecca waved at me.
Bye, Daddy.
As she got on, I looked up to smile at the bus driver, Rosie, and the blood drained from my face. In the seat where Rosie sat for the past 2 years, sat Miranda. I attempted to dive into the bus, but the door was closed and I bounced off them. As the bus pulled off, I noticed Rebecca by the window, and next to her was Miranda's grandmother. "Open the door! Open the door!" I screamed as I slammed the palm of my hand against the bus. As I ran alongside it, the bus sped off, leaving me in the middle of the road. I placed my hands on my head and sank to my knees. No!
Ha.
Just about to catch him. He's
The sound of sirens pierced through the night air. I knew I didn't have much time. I reached my hand through the broken glass window and grabbed hold of the gold bracelet. I had never done anything like that before. I was desperate. Suddenly, I heard a car screech up behind me. "Put your hands in the air," shouted a male voice. I turned around to see who had spoken. 2 police officers were standing in front of me, their guns pointing straight towards me. I had a split second to decide what to do. I could either run for it or give myself up. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more shocking stories. I was just about to make a run for it when the female officer said, "Joel, is that you?" "Mom?" I replied. "Dad?" I couldn't believe it. My parents were going to arrest me. But then, they did something I never expected. The 2 officers lowered their guns. "Just go home, Joel," said the male officer. "We will sort this out." "I'm sorry, Dad," I said. "I have to do this for Tess." I put the bracelet in my pocket and went straight home. You're probably wondering what all that was about. Well, if you want to find out more, be sure to stay tuned until the end of the video. I knew Tess was out of my league, but it didn't stop me from falling in love with her. From the first time I set eyes on her, I knew she was the one for me.
Let's pause a bit. Unlock my car. Head to the motel down here. Head to bed. Rag school. the normal. I am not gonna even bother going to that store. That store is closed for a while, most likely. That place over there would be hot right now. Not from Fedge, but how do I explain it? It's like a military. Even my gang can't defeat that military. So, I'm staying away from that place over there. You know what I mean? That clothes shop. Because I fucking destroyed it, cunt. I wrecked the bitch. Basically. Rocket. Let's chill here.
I would do anything to get her to date me. It was halfway through the school year when Tess came to our school. She was like a breath of fresh air. I remember her walking into the school hall and everyone stopped what they were doing and just stared at her. I had never seen anyone so beautiful in all my life. It took me about a week to pluck up the courage to talk to her. She was sitting in the school canteen by herself. I got my lunch and went over to her table. Mind if I join you? I asked. Sure, she said, smiling. My heart skipped a beat, and it felt like 1,000 butterflies were dancing through my stomach. I'm Joel, I said. Tess, she replied. We chatted through the whole lunch break. Tess told me how she was an only child. She had recently moved to our town because her dad had got a new job here. I miss my friends, she said. I noticed the gold locket hanging around her neck. That's a pretty necklace. Did you get that from your friends? Oh, this? No, this was a present from my ex-boyfriend. He was always showering me with gifts. My heart sank. There was no way I could compete with that. She was obviously used to getting expensive presents from her boyfriends. I didn't have the money to be able to buy her things. As I walked home from school that afternoon, I thought about how unfair life was. Some kids had everything they wanted, whilst people like me had nothing. It wasn't as though my parents didn't have the money. They both had really good jobs. But they wanted me to get things through my own hard work, not have everything handed to me on a plate. My dad's favorite thing to say to me was, money doesn't grow on trees. If you want to make something of your life, then you have to work hard for it. My mom and dad were both police officers. That's how they had met each other. They had both joined the police cadets when they were 17 years old and had been together ever since. There's a road I know I must go. I wanted that for me and Tess, too. I had to find a way to get her expensive gifts so that she would want to date me. So that's why I broke into the jewelry store. I had seen the gold bracelet that afternoon as I walked past the shop window. The glare from the afternoon sunshine reflected off it, and it blinded me for a second. I knew that Tess would love it. I couldn't believe that my parents had caught me stealing it. I had waited up for them to come home. When they came through the door, my dad didn't say anything. He just looked disappointed at me. Don't worry, we've sorted it all out, said Mom. Your fingerprints have all been cleaned up. No one will know it was you that broke in. Thanks, Mom, I said. It won't happen again. They asked me why I had tried to break in and steal, and when I told them it was for a girl, they looked even more disappointed. I apologized, and thankfully they didn't ground me for that long. The next morning, I set off early for school. I wanted to be at the school gates before Tess arrived. When I saw her walking down the street towards me, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the gold bracelet. Hi, Tess, I got you a present, I said. Tess looked at the bracelet and beamed. Thank you, Joel, it's beautiful. She took the bracelet and put it on her wrist. I love it, she said. Must be the TV.
After 20 years of being in prison for the famous 53 million Hillary Stanton bank robbery, Elijah Houston was released today from prison. Police reports say that the money was never recovered. To date, no other person has been charged along with Houston.
Daniela whistled.
That's a lot of money. If I ever get that, I'll never work another day of my life.
I wonder where he was able to hide $53 million in the past 20 years. He had to have accomplices.
Imagine being the only one caught for the robbery and you had to spend 20 years of your life in jail. I would be pissed. Whoever his accomplices are better have his money waiting.
Before heading to bed that night, I asked Daniela to drop me at my parents' house the next day, so I could look for a secret door or anything that the key would fit into. The next day, it felt weird staking out my parents' home. As soon as my parents left, I went into the house. I looked under every rug, behind every bookshelf and wardrobe, and even tapped the floorboards in the basement. You know what I came up with? Absolutely nothing. I hurried back to the car. When I got in, I turned to Daniela. That was a bust.
Maybe you can get some answers tomorrow when you go for dinner.
I kissed Daniela and smiled. I knew there was a reason. I love you so much. You're so smart. Daniela laughed and we pulled away from my parents' house. I had a sinking feeling that if my parents had no problem hiding a key in the arm of their 3-year-old son, that tomorrow's dinner will definitely be more than I bargained for. The next night, when we pulled up to the house, a strange car was in the driveway. I walked around the house slowly, not sure what to expect, when I heard loud voices coming from the kitchen. I hid under the window and listened.
Where is the money?
The stranger's voice snarled.
We hid the key to the chest in a safe place. Trust us.
Dad's voice shook as he spoke.
I trusted the two of you 20 years ago. While the both of you were able to go on living your lives, I rotted in jail.
We'll get the key tonight, and we'll meet at our rendezvous spot.
Mom said calmly.
You better. You have until 10 p.m., and all my money had better be there.
I heard the kitchen door open and slam shut. I sunk into the shadows as I watched the stranger walk away. A few seconds later, I heard the sound of an engine and screeching tires, which indicated that the man was no longer there. I needed answers, and the only person who had them were my parents. I walked to my parents' front door, plastered a smile on my face, and walked in. Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm here. I watched as my parents walked out of the kitchen, all smiles, and both gave me the normal greeting of a hug and a kiss.
How are you? And where's Daniela?
Mom asked. Oh, I'm not sure she'll be able to make it tonight. I wasn't about to let Daniela come here with my parents. I wasn't sure what to expect from them, and I wasn't about to put her in unnecessary danger.
Oh, that's too bad. Tonight I made your favorite, lasagna.
Dad looked at me smiling. Actually, Daniela and I caught a movie, and I ate pizza before coming over. I know. I waved my next to them about the key. As I got up to walk towards the kitchen, the doorbell rang. Who are my parents expecting at this hour? I mumbled as I opened the door.
Hi!
Daniela hugged me quickly before stepping into the house.
This is Minecraft Realms. Well, actually, it's a normal Minecraft world, but the difference is in the details. This is a
Fuck off.
I put her hand on my shoulder as she looked into my eyes. I shook my head and rubbed my eyes. I don't know, I'm feeling a bit off. I struggled to keep my eyes open. What Daniela said next shook me to my core.
Don't fight it, baby. Close your eyes and rest.
Daniela smiled as she held the key up. That was the last thing I saw before I passed out. When I woke up, whatever I was lying on was damp and soft. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized that I was in a cemetery.
Do we really need to get rid of him? We can't risk him running off and telling the police.
Mom responded.
But that's your son.
Actually,
Dad chimed in.
we adopted him shortly after the robbery. His only purpose was to hide the key till Elijah came out. Now we have the key, we no longer need the boy.
I couldn't believe this. The 3 people that I trusted with my life never had my interests at heart. They all just used me.
Let's place him in the coffin quickly. Elijah doesn't like to be kept waiting.
Dad grabbed my legs and dragged me towards the coffin. I fought against him, but between the wine and my recovering arm, I just didn't have the manpower to get away. Dad tossed me in the coffin. Daniela. My voice trailed off as Daniela turned. The coffin was open and my lungs welcomed the fresh air.
Come on, let's go.
Daniela's face and arms were covered in dirt. She helped me to my feet. I was no longer bound. Oh, am I going to get out of this? Is this how I'm going to die? I don't know how long I was out, but I woke up to a wet face and Daniela shaking me. I was no longer bound. The coffin was open and my lungs welcomed the fresh air.
Come on, let's go.
Daniela's face and arms were covered in dirt. She helped me to my feet. I looked at the ladder that was leaning against the wall of the grave. She insisted that I go first and she'd bring up the rear. When I got to the top, I lay on the ground, panting.
We don't have time. We have to move.
Daniela said, grabbing my arm. I pulled away. And why should I go with you? You've been working with my parents to save me.
It was all a part of my plan. I could have saved your life. If you don't get into that car right now, you'll be going to jail for a long time. Trust me.
I had no choice but to trust her. She helped me up and we hobbled to the car. Once inside, as we were driving away from the cemetery, I turned to her. I'm confused. Why did you help them if you came back to save me?
It was all a part of my plan. I couldn't tell you about it because I wanted your parents to believe me. Take a look in the back seat.
I spun around, and in the back seat and on the floor of the car were black duffel bags. Is that what I think it is? My eyes widened.
Yep. $53 million, baby.
Daniela squealed as she hit the steering wheel of the car excitedly. Danny, where are my parents? As I looked at her hands, I realized that they were covered in blood.
You mean those people who used you to hide a key for 20 years? They got what they deserved. You don't have to worry about them anymore.
We drove into a hangar and pulled up next to a car. Were my eyes deceiving me? It was the same car that was sitting in my parents' driveway a few hours ago.
Don't worry, just follow my lead.
She got out of the car and ordered two men who were dressed in suits to load the bags onto the plane. She held my hand and gently pulled me towards the plane. We boarded, and seated inside was Elijah Houston.
Hi, Daddy.
Daniela kissed Elijah on his cheek. What?
Would you like me to fix you a drink, Dad?
Sure, honey. You know what I like.
Elijah turned to me.
Thank you for securing my key.
Daniela handed him his drink and stood next to me.
Now it's time to get rid of the last loose end.
Elijah looked at Daniela and gulped his drink down.
You are right, Daddy. I did have one loose end to tie up.
I tumbled backwards as Elijah began to choke, and he staggered towards us while holding his throat. Daniela stood her ground and she pushed him back. He folded on the ground in front of her. When he stopped moving, she picked up her father's phone.
Yes, he's dead. We're bringing the body now.
After speaking on the phone, Daniela told me to buckle in because we had a long flight ahead of us. Tonight was a series of bizarre events, one that I will never forget. But now I'm plagued with a decision. Maybe you can help me. Should I call the police for Daniela, or should I stay with her and spend the $53 million? Please leave your suggestions in the comment section.
Hurry up and get yourself ready for church.
We're going to be late
I
again because
would
of you.
spend $1
Pastor
million.
Mac doesn't like when we're late.
My parents both screamed like we were somewhere being chased by tigers. What was so urgent or important about church anyway? I mean, I understood that it was important to some people, but there was something seriously wrong with our church. I put on my dress and ran down the stairs without bothering to comb my hair.
You look like a wet cat.
My mom continued screaming. God loves the animals. Leave me alone. Let's just go already. Later, we pulled up to our megachurch with its golden doors and diamond chandeliers.
We will start today's service with the offering. Remember that you will get 100 times the amount you receive, so give generously. The Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Before I continue my story, like this video and subscribe to the channel for 1 week of good luck. Please hit that notification bell too. Thanks! Now, where was I? Thankfully, I didn't have to go through that torture for much longer because Pastor Mac was involved in a huge scandal and my parents decided that we shouldn't go to that church anymore. I thought I was finally going to have a normal life. See, my parents spent most of their money on the church because they believed that it would cause blessings and more riches. One year, they even forgot to buy me a birthday present because Pastor Mac needed a new jet and they gave him their entire salary that month. I was so over them and this nonsense. So I was sitting on the couch with my iPad scrolling through Amazon and making a wish list of things I wanted that my parents would finally be able to afford for me. I was home alone because my mom and dad said they were going to the supermarket. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock that night, they still hadn't returned, and they weren't answering their phones. I started getting worried. Had they been in a car accident? Struck by lightning? Kidnapped? I always jump to the worst case scenario. I mean, that's just me. Then the doors burst open and my mom and dad walked in smiling. but my mom was holding something, which seemed extremely weird. Mom! Dad! I was so worried! What is that weird thing you're holding in your hands, Mom? She walked to the couch and put it to stand in front of me. It was a pretty doll which was wearing a cute lavender dress. It had long red hair and brown eyes. It looked like any ordinary doll at the toy store, just a little bit prettier. I'm a little too old for those now, Mom. I'm in high school.
This isn't yours. This is a special doll. We have so much to tell you.
Where do we begin?
Started my dad.
We had just finished buying some cleaning supplies at the dollar store when a lovely young lady approached us and asked if we were interested in joining her religion. Well, since we'd already left ours, we figured, hey, why not give a new one a chance? So we followed her to a strange-looking temple and walked inside to meet the leader. His name is Morgan, and he's awesome.
So, what is this new religion about then?
Well, I don't have all the details, but we had to buy this doll for $200. He said if we put it in our house, we'll have lots of good luck, but we have to treat it well.
Dad? Dolls don't have feelings. My parents both gasped. Then my mom started giving me a lecture.
This particular doll is special. She's not an ordinary doll. She's special.
Okay, I said. At this point, it wasn't worth arguing with my parents. They'd totally lost it. I thought of putting myself up for adoption. Anyway, by the next week, my parents had constructed a whole altar for